It is harvest time here in the Midwest, so that's right. So this is a blessing from the Minnesota delegation for farmers harvesting the crops. Gracious and holy God, we thank you for the bounty of the land, for those who plant and harvest, that the world may be fed. We are grateful for the harvest that has been successfully and safely planted, and pray that you graciously watch over those farmers yet to complete their harvest. Grant them favorable weather conditions and keep them safe. Where there is anxiety, give peace. Where there is desperation, where there is depression, restore hope. Where there is economic uncertainty, grant protection. Life-giving God, trust in your faithfulness and your promise to abide with us always, so that we are bold to pray that joy and gladness be restored to our orchards, farms, and ranches.
All right, a little change of plans. You saw the email, so we're going to have our speaker start off the meeting, and then she'll speak, leave time for questions, and then afterwards we'll just have an abbreviated Rotary meeting to keep time tight today. So, Scott.
All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Ashley Hinson. She's serving her first term in the Iowa House representing District 67, which includes Marion, Hiawatha, Robbins, and Cedar Rapids. She serves as Vice Chair of the Appropriations Committee and is also on the Transportation, Judiciary, Justice Systems Budget Committee, and the International Relations Committee. Ashley grew up in West Des Moines. She graduated from the University of Southern California with a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism. For more than a decade, she worked as a news anchor, reporter, and producer at KCRG TV9 in Cedar Rapids. She's a classically trained violinist and played 2 seasons in Des Moines Symphony. She regularly plays with her church's music worship team. Ashley is married to her husband Matthew and they have 2 young sons. Please welcome Ashley.
Thank you everybody for having me. I'm going to take this off while I speak, if that's all right. So, it has been an honor to serve in the Iowa House of Representatives, and it's in that name of service that I'm now stepping up to run to represent all of you in Congress as well. I am running for Congress specifically for 2 reasons, and you mentioned them in the introduction, Scott, but their names are Max and Jax, and they're our boys, and they're in school, back in school full-time, which thank goodness they need to get back in the classroom. But I look at them, and it's my job as their mom to fight for a better community for them and a stronger country for them. And so that's really been a big part of why I decided to step into public service. I did grow up here in Iowa, in central Iowa, and I left the state. I was one of those millennials who said, I want to get out of Iowa and experience the world. But as soon as I got out of Iowa, I was also like, oh my gosh, I want to go back to Iowa. And I realized that this was the place that I wanted to have my career, raise my family, and so that's exactly what I did. I've been back in Cedar Rapids since 2005, where I got the job at KCRG, anchoring mornings and midday. And I think if I can get myself out of bed at 2 a.m., which is what time my alarm went off for 10 years, I can do just about anything. So I did really enjoy my time there. Spent basically 10 years traveling the district. I didn't really realize it at the time, but the stories that I was telling were throughout the 1st Congressional District here in Iowa. And you learn a lot when you hear people talk about their successes, but also the challenges that face those communities. I mean, and there are a lot of them. And so I think that context has served me well as a state representative as well, being able to go to Des Moines, tell those stories of success, tell those stories of challenge, and use that knowledge to help make good policy for Iowans. So in the legislature, what I always tried to focus on was just common sense policy. As a mom, safety and security for my kids is probably my #1 issue, and one of the issues that I championed at the state legislature. I filed a bill it's now a law, but it specifically closed a loophole in our school reporting process where you could have basically a predatory employee in a school district traveling from school district to school district if they weren't being reported. There was no deadline to actually report these people in Iowa code, and that's just wrong. So we put a stop to that. I put a 30-day stopgap in if our school districts are not reporting them within 30 days. I think it should probably be faster than that, but we're giving them a couple weeks. But we need to stop those predators from jumping from school to school to keep our kids safe. So that's a bill that I filed and is now law here in the state of Iowa. I'm very proud of that work to protect our communities. I also believe in school infrastructure funding. I worked on the SAVE bill, which is the infrastructure penny that basically everybody's already paying, but we extended that to 2049, and it also provides direct property tax relief. Lowering property taxes is also something I heard time and time again from my constituents that they wanted me to go and prioritize and go to battle for them. So definitely went and did work there. This year, I think, has been challenging, to say the least. That's the biggest understatement of 2020. We've had the pandemic and we've had the derecho, and we needed to get our businesses up and running in a safe and sound manner. And so in the legislative session that we had kind of in June to wrap things up, we worked on a liability bill to help allow our nonprofits, our food pantries, our hospitals, our nursing homes, our businesses to open in a safe manner if they're doing everything right, practicing social distancing, wearing those masks, making sure that they are following the guidelines set out by the CDC. I want to make sure that the bad actors are also held accountable, and that was a priority in that bill as well. So that was a piece of legislation that I think was notable that we did just this year to help get our communities moving in the right direction forward through the challenges we faced. I also worked on second chance legislation for our employers. I believe in giving people second chances, and we need to provide them options to get back into the workforce if they've had some challenges in their past. And so I prioritized and filed a bill that allows some liability coverage for employers to be able to hire someone as long as what was in their background didn't directly involve what they're working on. So you, for instance, wouldn't have someone with a financial crime in their background running your cash register. But we want to make sure that people have that opportunity to get back in the workforce and be contributing members of our society again. And so I filed that bill as well. And then I'm proud to have voted for the largest tax reform bill in Iowa's history. We were able to provide direct tax relief to over 1 million Iowans, specifically targeted those in the $25,000 to $75,000 income range, because those are the people who need that money in their pocket the most. I think the federal government could clearly learn a thing or two from how we do it here in Iowa. We've done that in a manner that not only gave money back to taxpayers, but we put together a responsible budget. And Iowa's budget has just been named the most resilient in the country, and we were just talking about this a few minutes ago, to be able to weather this pandemic and the challenges that we are facing this year, which I think says a lot about the leadership you have working for you in Des Moines and the leadership that hopefully you'll send to go work for you in Washington, D.C. as well. We have a full surplus, we have responsible budgeting, and as a result, our state is not going to need a bailout from the federal government. And I think that's something that you as Iowa taxpayers can be proud of. And again, I think we need to have that kind of perspective in Washington. So it's been a very interesting ride to serve in the legislature. I've learned a lot of great lessons, learned a lot about policy and what I want to go do in Washington. I chaired the Transportation Committee, so transportation and infrastructure policy is very important to me. More than 90% of the bills that we passed out of the committee that I chaired were bipartisan bills. And in a time where we are in the middle of, I would call it a hyper-partisan environment, I'm very proud of the work that we did. It was directly relating to the supply chain, which we've also seen how important that is this year. And I think those kinds of common sense bills are exactly what we need more of in Washington and what I'm going to go work on. So the issues that I think really matter are restoring our way of life, rebuilding our economy, and then renewing the American dream. And you may have seen that as the commitment to America. It's a plan, a roadmap that Republicans are putting out as the plan of what we want to move forward with if you send us to Congress. And so I am proud to say that I support those initiatives. The stuff I've been talking about for a year and a half. We need to make sure our economy is healthy. We need to make sure our people are healthy. Increasing testing, protecting our community's safety and security is very important to me, and making sure we're not defunding the police. I think we can all agree that's a wacky idea, and I think we all need to keep our communities safe, because if we don't have safety and security, we don't have anything. And Congress has passed the buck on reforming our healthcare system for years. Seems nobody wants to make a tough decision. But I'm willing to do that because that's what you hire us to do. Tough decisions aren't always popular, but they're necessary. And I am a firm believer that we need to tackle this system. I believe in choices in healthcare and making sure that people can access healthcare in a way that works for them. Whether that's a traditional insurance model, an employer-provided insurance model, or choosing to have a direct relationship with a primary care provider, for example. I've heard a lot about membership models and how those shared costs models work well for a lot of families and a lot of people in other states. So we need to be thinking about creative options for providing healthcare access for everyone, because I believe that everybody should have access to healthcare on the terms that they want it. So I'm ready to go work on that. And my husband is a small business owner. He's an insurance agent himself. He does mostly commercial property, but I understand what the impact can be on a small business and the bottom line. They would rather create a job and hire someone else than have to absorb that cost and pay it in healthcare premium. And I think that's a real challenge facing a lot of businesses right now is they're having to make that tough decision of, we've seen it go up and up and up every year. Are we now going to have to pass that on to our workers instead of having to absorb that cost ourselves? And so I'm definitely cognizant of those very real challenges that face our businesses and our small business community. And I've gone to bat for small business in the Iowa legislature, and I'll do the same in Washington, D.C. With that, I would be happy to take a couple of questions if anybody has any burning questions. There we go. Yes.
Actually, could you speak to a commercial that I have seen on the TV a number of times where I quote you exactly, "I don't think every American wants health insurance."
Yeah.
Could you speak to that,
Sure.
please?
Yeah, because I just spoke about it a minute ago when I was talking about healthcare options for people. I think options are important. And I've heard from people who say they want to be able to buy healthcare how they want it and not have insurance. So I have heard people say that. That's exactly why I said that. And that little snippet was, of course, taken out of context in a bigger discussion about healthcare and how we fix it. I have talked about targeted fixes to healthcare to reduce administrative cost, how important it is, because that cost gets directly passed on to patients. One of the bills that I filed in the Iowa House, and it gives me ideas to go to Washington and work on this too, but when I'm hearing that the insurance billing process is really the cog in the wheel in a lot of cases in driving up the cost, it doesn't do a provider any good if they spend an hour chasing a claim for a $45 visit, right? And then they've wasted an hour of their time, so that costs everybody more money. So that's what I was specifically talking about, is there are some people who don't want to have to purchase insurance. There are some people who absolutely need it because they have healthcare decisions that they have to make that cost a lot of money, and they absolutely need that coverage. So I want to make sure we have coverage for pre-existing conditions. I want to make sure people can buy healthcare how they want it, but I don't believe in mandating buying insurance, and there are people who say they don't want it. So that's where that little soundbite came from, I guess you'd say, and what my philosophical belief around it is.
I can't imagine living without health insurance.
Yeah. And for some people, that's absolutely vital, yeah. But I have had people tell me that, and that's where it came in the
I have
conversation.
friends who've decided not to have insurance coverage.
Yeah.
They get much better pricing from providers when
Yeah.
they go and negotiate when it's coming out of their pockets.
So what I support is making sure people have options to have what works best for them, whether or not that's buying health insurance, having health insurance through their employer, or choosing to buy health care a la carte how they want it on their own terms. Yep.
Ashley, could you talk about the national deficit? It seems like we have a bipartisan consensus that we're going to
Yep.
spend more than we have.
Yeah.
And have you given that thought? And,
Yeah.
and what do you think?
Yeah, well, exactly why I talked about our state budget here in Iowa and why it's so important you have someone who's willing to go to bat and make tough decisions. And sometimes that means saying no to spending. I think Washington does have a spending problem on both sides of the aisle. And I support a balanced budget amendment. I believe that the federal government should budget like we do, where you can't spend more money than you take in. Imagine how many fewer problems we would have if we didn't have that kind of approach to budgeting in Washington, D.C. So I think that's the direction we need to move forward. That's what I will push for. I will also push for elimination of wasteful spending whenever possible. When I'm hearing about government funding going to things like studying the reproductive habits of a bird while they're high on cocaine, right? They got money for that from the federal government. So those are the kinds of things that I think are just asinine and we shouldn't be spending taxpayer dollars on. We have so many other priorities that we need our taxpayer money to go to. And so that's how I believe philosophically. I support a balanced budget amendment, zero-based budgeting, and I believe philosophically the government should not spend more than it takes in.
Ashley, I know that was a macroeconomic question. I kind of have a micro one, and typical Iowa question, I guess. I would like to know who allocates the monies for the free lunch programs. Is it done on a state basis or a federal?
That's federal. So, and you would apply to the federal program. I can get you more specifics on it.
Well, no, I have specifics.
Oh.
I have both our junior high schools in Dubuque qualify for schools in need, of course.
Right.
And
Free
this
and
is
reduced
here's the funny part. Once you reach a threshold, is it 60 or 70? of 60%
They give it to the
of
whole
children.
school.
They give it to the whole school.
Yep.
And like my granddaughter, who's 13 and goes to Washington Junior High, one day she got a plastic debit card with just her name on it for $330, in which the family would not qualify if anybody bothered to check, and they still have it. Like they don't want to use it. But why? That seems oddly wasteful.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that was a result of COVID because they wanted to make sure that no child was hungry because they weren't in school. So I think those cards specifically came
Just for COVID?
because of the pandemic. So I think that's where those cards came from.
Okay.
I can double check that, but I remember seeing that they were sending those payments out.
And they didn't say if they were sending it once, or is it going to be, I don't know. And then if it's federal, you're talking big dollars.
Yes, absolutely.
For people that don't need,
Right,
in the most part.
we are lucky we can afford
Yeah,
to pay for our
exactly,
kids' lunch,
exactly,
but
yes.
our kids' school, and I believe most schools right now are funded through the end of the year for lunch for everybody.
Okay, yes.
I think that's because it is a challenging time for so many families, and our government wanted to make sure that no kid was hungry. And so I see, just as a legislator who's worked on a couple of those policies, we worked on a food shaming bill, myself and Representative Ronnie Marquardt in Lynn County, and we had a situation arise at one of the high schools where if a child didn't have enough in their account to pay, they would actually dump the food out in front of everybody. So I think there's an issue there between making sure that there's no stigma associated with having to be on the free and reduced lunch. So that's why I think at that threshold, possibly that's why the whole school qualifies. But I want to make sure that no child is shamed for taking advantage of one of those programs.
Right.
And I want to make sure no kids
Well, and there's absolutely no shame on the debit card. Anybody can use it.
So I would assume because the whole school probably was
The
on
whole
that
school did
program,
it, yeah,
they
I'm sure,
probably all got the
yeah,
card.
okay, all right,
But I can check for sure.
yeah. Just as long as it's just through COVID.
I think that was it. I'll double check.
That would be the question, yeah.
One in the back.
Yes.
Since you have 10 years of broadcast experience, and you're going to Washington, and the whole, the terms now are fake news and can't trust the media. Tell us about your experience in the media and taking that to Washington, and how you use your experience in broadcast journalism to kind of maybe bring that back together, possibly?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest frustration on my mind is I tried to always teach balance when I was talking with new producers, for instance, coming into our newsroom. Like, you can cover one thing, but you have to, for example, if I remember this when Governor Ted Culver was the governor of the state and Terry Branstad was running against him to challenge him in 2010, I had to sit down with our producer because she was only including where Governor Culver was that day. I said, well, you have to include where the challenger is going to. I think that balance is important, just so that people have a choice of, learning where their candidate is or who they might want to hear from is. So I always try to use my job as an opportunity to teach balance and insert that balance whenever possible. How I plan to use my job or my skill set, I guess I would say, in Washington is it's really constituent driven. It's source driven. As a journalist, I had my list of sources, obviously people who I went to for insight on specific areas of policy. Hey, I need to talk to someone about the pandemic. I'm going to call the medical director at my local hospital. So those people who are my sources then ended up becoming my constituent advisory committee. People who I could go to and say, hey, I have a bill about ag commodities right now. I need some insight on that. So I'd shoot that bill off to people who were experts in that field, right? So I think that's where I will take I've operated that way in Des Moines as a state representative. It's how I'll operate in Washington as well, using my source list to make sure I'm vetting policy, getting good feedback on policy, and making good decisions on that policy. Or in some cases, if we need to stop policy from moving forward, I think that's where that network of people that I trust to tell me the real deal about all of these issues, I'm going to utilize that network. As far as changing the script on the media, I think one of the challenges that our media faces, because I've lived it too, is like in many industries, you're just being asked to do more with less. And I think that's a disservice to journalists also. Some, you can tell they're biased, but others I think are just trying to turn a good story every day. And I think it's frustrating to watch when I see additional hours or half hours of news being added, and I know the burdens on those reporters are to get that done and turn it and get it on the air within, you know, a specific amount of time. And so I understand the daily grind that some of those reporters are facing too, and I understand that's got to be incredibly frustrating for them to put out good content also. So I would call on all of the people who own these stations to give their people more time to put together good quality products, because I think we all could benefit from that.
As a journalist, are you pressured at all by the people who own the stations, what things to report and not report?
You mean in the newsroom? I mean, you have an editorial meeting, but I mean, I could go to bat for anything I felt was important to cover. And so I think in the editorial process, it's an open discussion. I've been out of the news for 5 years this fall, but when I was a part of it, it was always an open discussion. We made editorial decisions, and as an anchor, I had a part in making sure that things that were important were covered, or added the balance, or copy edited, or whatever. So I was able to do that. I'll do one more, and then I think I probably need to go.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Since you're a first termer at the state.
Second, but yes.
Second,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
sorry.
outdated. No, that's okay.
Well, you mentioned the committees that you're on, and I think going as a freshman into Congress, how much say do you have as to which committees you want to be on, and what's the likelihood of you being on those committees? And kind of explain what your motivation would be
Sure.
to get on the committees, and what your chances are of getting on the committees that would help Iowa.
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, I've been working to develop relationships with congressmen and congresswomen who are already there, who have a part in steering committees for those committee assignments. So I've been trying to connect with them, let them know what I'm about, what my experience is, and what I would bring to the table. I think that's important. Not every person running for Congress has legislative experience, so I do think that can be an asset, just in understanding how process works and in trying to get up to speed quickly. So I am trying to get to a point where I could serve on the Financial Services Committee, because number one, I think as a Republican woman, we need more Republican women on that committee, because there's very few. But I also am really interested in the financial services industry, because I think that it helps our economy to churn. Small businesses, insurance, all of those things are very interconnected to making sure we can have a roaring economy here, but also on the global scale. I have served on the Judiciary Committee. I think you need non-attorneys on the Judiciary Committee. I didn't go to law school. I'm proud of the work that I did there. I was able to run some major pieces of legislation through that I think did really good things for Iowa. You talk about, somebody asked me about healthcare insurance, you know, creating a good working environment for our specialists and our physician community here in the state. I ran that bill through Judiciary to reform our malpractice system here in Iowa. There are a lot of synergies between what I've done here in terms of budget, Judiciary, and then transportation that I think would serve me well and serve you well in Washington as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. And I would say if anybody has any other questions for me, just email info@ashleyhinson.com. Real easy, and we'll get you an answer if there's something specific you have a question on or didn't feel comfortable asking in front of the group today. But I'm grateful for the time and opportunity to come and speak with you today. I'm ready to bring some Iowa common sense to Congress, and I would ask for your vote on November 3rd or before if you're voting early, and look forward to speaking with you again sometime soon. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ashley. I know your schedule's busy, so we appreciate you coming up from Cedar Rapids for a short visit.
Off to the next.
In the car and off to the next one as quick as you can, right? All right, well, how about if we jump into Happy Dollars and community announcements? Anybody happy today? Are there any big announcements today? No? None yet?
Okay, Paul's got happy.
Paul's got happy, all right. No? Oh, no. Oh, saying goodbye. Well, I'm gonna put in a happy dollar. I'll put in a happy dollar because we're less than a month away from the end of this process. So, then we can get regular television back. Marianne?
I have a happy dollar. I think I do. Take a look here. I do. I have a happy dollar because I don't have gout.
Oh.
You see what I have here? Got this yesterday. Doctor told me it was either a stress fracture caused by this pandemic or gout. And I know you guys who helped out, and Lord Almighty, I don't want that thing. They battled it for years, there's no cure for it. You get it, it comes, it goes, it comes, it goes. They both have swollen legs and a lot of pain. This will go away eventually. So I'm happy.
So no dancing for a little while.
Okay, here we go.
Scott.
Here you go.
All right, $2 happy because tonight I'm going to be cheering on my Atlanta Braves in Game 2 of the NLCS. So go Braves.
Yeah. Okay.
As a non-member, I'm going to raise this 2 to a 3. We're here today just because I'm wearing the Votes for Women pin, because this pin was worn by women back when the suffragettes were marching for their women to earn the right to vote. So I just encourage everybody and everybody you know, no matter who you want to vote for, just get out there and vote.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, which raises a question. Our Tuesday meeting will be on voting day. So should we have a meeting that day? Would everybody be around or not?
Most of these people have already voted.
Okay. All right. Just thought I'd check.
Because I'm working the polls that day downtown at the annex, so I voted a week ago.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Happy dollars. We appreciate
Wait, hold it.
a non-Rotarian with happy dollars. That's wonderful.
We have a happy dollar. Here you like a mic? You may?
I suppose. I have a happy dollar because as a guest today, we brought Pauline Chilton, who is running for state representative and is here in moral support of Ashley.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Daryl. All right. So Joyce has been trying to arrange Abby Finkenauer as well, because again, we're nonpartisan, but we haven't been able to get that confirmed, so it doesn't look positive right now as far as we know. It's getting her in before the election. So just so people know, we're trying to get both sides. We don't want any questions about how we do that. So, all right. Sandy, anything new on cleanup day or anything you'd like to mention? I know we've talked about it.
Cleanup day on the 24th.
Yep.
Hopefully great weather. If it turns out to be a really bad day, we still have one on the 31st. So we look forward to seeing you there. Bring your own gloves. We don't really want to distribute gloves, so just bring your own gloves. And if you have a rake or a hand tool, go ahead and bring that along. We do have some rakes that we can hand out as well.
Excellent.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Perfect.
I have an announcement, Tim.
You'll meet at the visitor center.
Visitor Center. Okay.
Yeah, so there'll be like an outdoor sign-in area, and I'll have your Rotary Rascal shirts. Woo! So it'll be fun, and we'll have a presence there, which I think is important.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, I got an email from the Rotary District that they have money left over this year, first time ever in the grants process. So they're accepting grant proposals for this year. I think it's $5,000 is left. So if someone has an idea that they would like to accomplish in the Dubuque area, I've done several of these. It's not difficult. Directions are in a little manual, and I'd be glad to help you. So thanks.
I'm not aware of any grants request or ideas for grants right now, but if anybody had any, please shoot them out. All right, I think we'll do raffle, and then we'll end it with the 50 things about Rotary and end early today. So Joyce.
And what do we have for prize?
I don't know. We'll see what you need some help with it, right?
Pretty slim pickings in here.
All right. Here we go. Wait, hold it.
$20. Be sure you see that you got a $2 bill in
How much did we make? Oh, good.
Well, we have a $2 bill,
Well, I know where that came from.
and I almost gave him 3 bags. Good thing people are honest. Yeah.
And we have these, I don't know what to do.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Booze?
Why don't we have one of our guests draw?
Yeah, and yes, drum.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, there we go.
we have 2 bags that I have no idea what.
Texas Select Club.
No, I know it's in those.
Oh, those are adorable.
A little whiskey.
All right, come on over. Over here.
Arboretum bags?
Yes.
Arboretum bags from Sandy.
The birthday boy.
Look. 4.
Yeah.
Just set them on the
We
table.
do this to make sure that we're honest and we get all this taken care of.
That's why Gary doesn't get to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can hand them to me one at a
One at
time.
a time, yeah.
It's a good magic trick.
Okay.
We
so
stand
the
out of
first
ceremony
one
here at
is
Rotary Club.
Tony.
Tony! Hey!
I'll take an Arboretum bag.
All right.
Arboretum bag. Take that, man, an Arboretum bag. How lovely is it?
Scott, Goins.
Oh, my God.
Who's Arboretum?
That's 4 in a row.
No, I didn't get last week.
You didn't get last week?
4 out of 5. Starting a series.
Arboretum bag, okay. Scott Goins gets an Arboretum bag.
Last time I said casino, but I think lottery might be
Scott,
more.
oh my God, you're the luckiest man in the world. What could possibly be in there? I don't know, but it's cute. All right, who's next?
Be nice.
Be nice. Joe, you gotta hold that up for Gary. There you go.
Joe, anybody whose first name is Joe?
Joe?
Let me look at that.
Turn
minute.
Over, Joyce.
Let's see. Oh, it's John Luckstead. Where is that John? John, want some whiskey? Very small amount.
Jim Adams again.
All right, and you.
Scott and Kim are the big lucky ones.
Yeah, wow. All right.
Is there a trick for that? It's got to be a magic fold or something, I guess.
And Tim, do you want to take some of the lowa?
Oh, yes. Well, no, we didn't do music today, but
Isn't that lovely?
anybody who would like $2 for Ryla? All right. Normally we do that with the music of the world. So I'll just end it with the matching grants. This is the 50 things to know about Rotary, so timely for what Chuck had brought up. So among the programs of the Rotary Foundation are the matching grants that assist Rotary clubs and districts in conducting international service projects. Since 1965, more than 3,700 grants have been awarded for projects in about 135 countries, with awards of more than $23 million. A club or district must contribute an amount at least as large as that requested from the foundation, with at least half the funds that the foundation will match coming from a country outside the country where the project will take place. Grants have been made to improve hospitals, develop school programs, drill water wells, assist the handicapped or persons requiring special medical attention, provide resources for orphanages, create sanitation facilities, distribute food and medical supplies, and many other forms of international community service in needy areas of the world. Some grants are for projects in the magnitude of from 15 to 50,000, but most are in the range of 5,000 to 10,000. Matching grants are not approved to purchase land or build buildings, and they may not be used for programs already underway or completed. Personal participation by Rotarians is required, and the benefits should extend beyond the recipients. The Matching Grants program is a very significant part of the Rotary Foundation and provides an important incentive for clubs to undertake worthwhile international service projects in another part of the world. They certainly foster goodwill and understanding, which is in keeping with the objectives of the Rotary Foundation. So, 50 things. So, all right, and we didn't do Music of the World today. We didn't have anybody signed up, but I wasn't sure how much time we would have. So next week we'll do that. So is there any other announcements anybody might have? Or?
I think Tim should sing.
Sing? You don't want that, trust me.
I wish that guy with the bagpipe was here.
Well, true story. Somebody convinced me, we were out having a good time, and they convinced me to go over to the Rainbow Lounge and do karaoke. So I went over and tried to do Friends in Low Places, and as the song went along, the microphone kept getting turned down. I'm pretty certain. So if that tells you something. All right, we are adjourned. Have a great week, everyone.